Hey, welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Hey, what's going on, Ashley? Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
to see you, bro.
It's been a minute. It's funny. I feel like you made your debut on the podcast just with putting out a couple of EPs, a
Oh
few
goodness.
freestyles.
That was exclusive content, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
People just got a little bit of a taste, but let people know, who do you say you are?
wow. Okay. I'll start off by saying, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, and I know that gets shared a lot, but that's just how I see it. That's what comes first, family. So I'll say that I'm a family man. So I'm a family man. I'm a Christian child of God. So when it comes to just my priorities in life, if you were to ask me who I am, it will be I'm a person that's centered around Christianity or, and being a family man. Yes, sir.
That's what's up. I know we were just talking about family and you're sharing like where do you come from?
The background, my dad's side is actually from Valdosta, Quitman, Southern Georgia, if you're not familiar with that area. And I know you just shared that's where you're located. My mom's side of the family, they're from Jamaica, a area called Clarendon, Four Paths. So growing up, it's safe to say I grew up in a West Indian household. Not to discredit anybody from my dad's side of the family, but I grew up around my mom's side of the family. My family all lived around each other in Jamaica. And what happened, my grandfather came over to the States first, then sent for my grandmother. And then eventually my mom and her siblings came, So my brother and I are the first generation born in the States from my mother's side of the family. And we just all, when I say grew up together, Asha, I mean, we grew up together.
Yeah.
There was a period of time when we lived in Augusta, Georgia. My family was here. My grandparents, like we lived in the same area. Then we moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, and that's where I spent most of my life. So if you ask me where I'm from, I'm gonna say West Palm Beach, Florida, because I've been there since second grade. Prior to that, I lived in Germany for 4 years, Army brat. But I lived around my mom's side of the family, like literally to the point where my grandparents built their house right here. My aunt built her house across the street. Two doors down, my aunt built a house down there. They bought the lot in between and planted all types of, things that are traditionally eaten in the Caribbean,
Hmm.
avocado, sugar cane, gungo peas, all that grew there. But my mom was the rebel. So she built our house like two or three streets down. I mean, she couldn't live on the same street as the family. So she was a bit rebellious. So like I grew up around my mom's side of the family, which were all born in Jamaica, so that was
Yeah.
pretty much how I was brought up. But I definitely, when I had the opportunity, spent time with my dad's side of the family, but my parents separated when I was young.
Mm.
So it was mostly my mom's side. Yes, sir.
Got you. And with family being as important as it is to you, I know you always mention just like the trips you make to go back to that area and being able to visit the family and really get out there, bring your wife, bring your kids, and just like have everyone just have that the family time together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Like when I was, like I said, my parents separated, and just where due to proximity, my father's family lived further away. But whenever I had the opportunity, even when my parents separated, like I may ride it with my grandmother to the family reunion. So that was that traditional African American family reunion. With the fish fry on Friday. Fish and grits on the Friday night, and go to church on Sunday, and just come together as a family. But I was intentional to go, so it would be just me, and then I'll ride with my grandmother. So I'll spend that time to see, seeing my dad's side of the family and seeing the history and everything like that. So I definitely, enjoyed that. And even, currently I still go back home to visit my family back in Florida.
Man, that's what's up. And
Yeah, man.
what's good about it, it's like the story doesn't stop there with your parents kind of going their separate ways. Like you were able to mend the relationship with your dad or build the relationship with your dad. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's something they say. It's probably a southern thing. If you were to see my dad and then see me, I remember like being around family, and they would just say like, oh, you just, this is what they were saying to my dad. Oh, you just spit him out. You just spit him out. Because if you were to see my dad next to me, me next to my dad, however you want to say, we look so much alike. So growing up as a little boy, your first hero is typically your dad. So growing up, I took pride. I have an older brother, so I'm the younger, but I took pride in looking like my dad, because he was like the hero. He was former military and everything. I should think my dad was indestructible. So I just took a lot of pride in that I resembled him. I had some of his mannerisms and so forth. So I was just intentional, even when my parents separated, to just stay in contact with my dad. You know, when my parents did separate, I was in like around fifth grade. You know, so that was kind of a pivotal time, I would think. In a child's life. I was just at that point. And once again, my dad was in the military, so he wasn't always there. So this was around the time when he finally was out of the military and we were all together. And I remember we had like our first brand new house, Asher, and I remember my dad was like, this was in Florida, so we had this big lake in the backyard. So my dad was teaching me how to fish. He was teaching me how to barbecue. He was teaching me how to throw the football and stuff. But it was almost, and then like I said, we went on our first, house together. He's out of the military, brand new house. I remember that was like the first time I remember having a brand, like a real Christmas tree, and as a little kid, I just remember like the trees were so tall. It's like you had to cut the top off just for it to fit in the house,
Yeah.
so it's like I just had those memories. Unfortunately, those memories were short lived, because I think it was just an adjustment of my dad not always being there to now you're in the home with your family full time. My mom, wasn't maybe accustomed to my dad being there. And then we could get into a whole nother discussion about culture, Asher. My mom being Jamaican, my dad being, country boy from Southern Georgia, my mother, coming from the religious denomination of Seventh-day Adventism to my dad being Southern Day Baptist, so just coming together, and, I'm sure other things that I wasn't aware of, unfortunately, when all of that came together, that caused my parents to separate. So it's like all of that got cut short, so even now, I don't even watch sports. Like, what I mean? Like, I don't have nothing against it, but I don't know if maybe subconsciously I tied it back to that time, like
Mm.
I felt like I just didn't have it. But I just remember when it was starting, I loved it,
Yeah.
learning how to fish, learning how to throw a football, learning how, to do different things like that with my dad, like that manly stuff,
Right. Right.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up, man. It's funny when you talk about those dynamics of like just different cultures. I mean, I'd like to actually talk about that a little bit because
Mm,
you don't like I hadn't thought about it until recently, and you
mm.
actually understand that there are different dynamics from like the Jamaican West Indian
Oh,
culture
man.
and like the like South Georgia
Yeah.
culture. And it's like if you're in Louisiana, there's a culture there. If you're in Mississippi, there's like just different cultures, and it's like you got to find a way to kind of make those things mesh. So like I guess what how have you been able to kind of learn from both sides, and kind of like what are some of the things you picked up from both of your
Mm.
parents, from like the southern side, from the West Indies side?
When it comes to the southern side, it's not a lot, just because I wasn't around it as much. I'm born in the United States. You asked me, I'm proud to be African American. I'm proud to also be, first generation, born in the States from Jamaica. I'm proud of both sides.
Mhm.
I think I've because of just proximity and everything, I grew up around the West Indian side, and I just know there was a strong effort for like to push like an emphasis on education, on hard work, on being independent, pride. Um, on a quick side note, just a small dynamics when it comes to culture.
Yeah.
I remember while our house was being built my freshman year of high school, we actually stayed with my grandparents. And once again, just a little culture thing. I remember being in the house, and I think I had a song stuck in my head, Asher. And I was just like, I kind of like just whistled the tune. I don't even know why I whistled, you know what I mean? But I actually was whistling a tune, and my grandmother said, "Excuse me, young man." And I kind of stopped. I'm like, oh, I didn't say anything. I kept going. Then I must have started whistling the tune again. And my grandma like, "Excuse me, young man." I'm like, I kind of looked. I'm like, I didn't say it. Like, I'm like, I didn't say anything. And she's like, "You're a grown man. Like you walk around the house, whistling. Do you pay bills?" And I'm like, oh, like, like I didn't realize like that was it's a cultural thing, but I didn't realize that was almost like disrespectful for me as a young man or a young person to be walking around whistling. So there's little cultural things like like that within the family. But and please steer me back if I go off too much on a tangent when
No,
it comes to
no,
the
you're
questions.
you're right
But
on it, man.
okay, but when it comes to the culture, there's just different. The dynamics are just different, and I listened to another podcast recently, which really kind of clarified some things. To be 100% honest, sometimes the perspective from West Indians, or maybe other foreigners, is that like an American Black is kind of lazy. Just to be honest, I'm sure some of us may have heard it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just like the mentality, like, we may come over here, we may work hard, and
Mhm.
we're able to establish this. And we came from meager, origins, like thinking about my grandfather coming from Jamaica over here to the States back in the, I mean, in his time era, having a graduate degree,
Yeah.
to have two of his sons go on to become physicians in private practice, and their
Mhm.
wives, have their PhD in pharmacy, and my mother's in education, so like we were able to kind of build it from the ground up.
Mhm.
And they may look, I'm not saying my family specifically, I'm saying in general, like sometimes the West Indian culture, or people from another country, people of
Yeah.
color, they may look down on Blacks in America. But then
Yeah.
on the flip side, and this is what was put out at the podcast, there's, you know, African Americans have dealt with a lot in this country, in the
Mhm.
history over 400 years of slavery. So it's at that point now where there's just certain things, Blacks, we're not going to tolerate,
Yeah.
and also it's just like, yes, foreigners or people from other places, West Indians, are able to come to the States and make it. But then
Mhm.
a lot of Blacks from America are like, hey, you're able to do that based off of this. I can't even say sacrifices,
Mhm.
because it wasn't voluntary. But at the same time, sacrifice did take place. Like Blacks
Yeah.
were enslaved. And then even from that point, a lot of the things that the Blacks went through, that we went through in just like with the civil rights era,
Mhm.
all of that, it's like the foundation was laid there.
Right, right.
We may not be able to come from Jamaica and Caribbean, St. Lucia, wherever, and come to the States and even do what we do without this, like I said, for lack of better terms, a sacrifice that took place from American,
Mhm.
Blacks in America. So I know that's kind of like I won't say it's a hot topic, but that's like an internal conflict, or whatever you want to call it, you
I,
know.
I agree with you because
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Cameroon. So my parents are also Cameroonian born West Central
Mm-hmm.
Africa. And it's like there is that notion coming in as a foreigner. It's like you see yourself as black and you have that determination of hard work, religion,
Mm-hmm.
education. Those are the things that are pushed because it's like that's your only way out of a third
Yeah.
world country or like a bad situation where there's a lot of corruption. But I think something that gets missed and kind of what you pointed to is like from the onset, you're kind of pitted against each other.
Yeah.
And it's like you see a Black American and all of a sudden you're judging without having an understanding of their actual history and like what it
Mm-hmm.
is that they sacrifice. And I think to the point that you made, there is that a lot of opportunities and openings and things that are built up that Black Americans have made. I
Mm-hmm.
think people kind of miss the fact that when they see Black successful people, they're like, oh, okay, well, the foreigners are special just because they work harder, as to
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, where a foreigner might be, an American might have been. And it's like, I guess sometimes it's like people don't like words like segregation or
Mm-hmm.
like But there's a reason why you need to distinguish things, because it's like when you try to make everything one thing, it's like
Hmm.
it does a disservice to the people that are involved in it. Like when you just take the term like black and you turn it into African American and you
Hmm.
just say, "Oh, this one and the same." It's like, no, you've got people that are from Africa, you've got people that
Yeah.
are from Jamaica, you've got people that are from the Dominican Republic, you've got like everything is kind of being mixed together, which is where the truth of the matter is in those cultural dynamics, there are differences that apply. And that's something you've got to learn through. And I guess maybe people at times think it's, oh, okay, I'm just together with this person and we're just going to figure it out. But
Yeah.
then it's like there are heavy biases where people are like, oh, I didn't think that I didn't think about that. Just
Hmm.
simply put, it's like you wouldn't have you don't have to think about certain things if you never grew up thinking about it until you
Yeah.
have to. But I would say one thing I noticed you did pick up from the Southern culture, at least from how we met and kind of being on the men's prayer line, is like you know
Yeah.
how to throw down when it's time to
Hey,
get the grub on. You do know how to throw down, so I'll give you that.
hey, I appreciate it, man. And that even kind of maybe even spawning from, you know, just being younger, my parents separating, and that was kind of a rough transition, but it's just like there were just certain things that I started to do. Of course my mother was still there. She remarried, but she was probably working hard. So, I started taking more of the initiative to like, okay, let me start with dinner, so that's it was some trial and error, but I started to learn, but it was definitely a mix of the two, because like I said, growing up around my family, West Indian family as well, they throw down as well. So it's just like I'm in the kitchen, kind of watching and learning how to do different things as well. And one thing I didn't want to glaze over, but in addition to culture with my parents, I just got to sprinkle back in the religious aspect. I
Mm.
mentioned
Talk
that,
about it.
my mom's side of the family was Seventh Day Adventist for the most part. My dad's side was Southern Baptist. If you're not familiar with Adventism, they're big into the health message, so there's like the dietetic laws in the Bible. So it's like there's certain meats that are viewed as being unclean. So even if I just touch on that, it's like Seventh Day Adventists, they don't eat pork, they don't eat catfish. And if I pause right there, you think about the Southern Baptists, you know what I mean? When I would go to a family reunion, when I say from the rooter to the tutor, you know what I mean? Like, pork and all that other stuff. And another big something like a signature thing for Adventism, Seventh Day Adventist, is going to church on Saturday. Like Saturday is the Sabbath, and it's not just just the calendar day Saturday. It's like the Friday night to the Saturday night. Going looking at looking at the scripture, looking at a day going from a day really begins when the sun sets. So as Seventh Day Adventist, it's like the Sabbath is Friday night to Saturday night. And it's like shut it down. Like when I would be around my dad's side of the family, Sunday Baptist, they're like, oh, well, Sunday's our Sabbath. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, just the distinction that I noticed from my
Right, right.
observations. It's like, what I mean? They would still go, I don't know, to the mall, just almost like after church, live life just like it's any other day. And I'm not knocking it in any shape, form, or fashion, but when it came to Adventism, and sometimes even with like that West Indian background Adventism, super conservative, very, very modest, like, not really the makeup, jewelry, and all that stuff are not, it's like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have overall coming from a denomination that's significantly more conservative,
Mm.
like even my wife growing up SDA, she got her ears pierced. I think maybe when she turned 35, what I mean, for the first time,
Yeah.
so there is a distinction. So imagine throwing the religious aspect and the cultural aspect into a marriage, when
Mm.
they seem like it seems like they're almost polar opposites,
Right.
same God, but different, what I mean, different. We're all trying to make it into the kingdom. I guess we're just using different strategies, but we got the same goal in mind.
Man, that's so well said. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I guess growing up with that and then eventually, like you talked about, like the separation at fifth grade in high school, how things change, and then going into college, you decided to go to Oakwood? Like, how'd you make that
Hmm.
decision?
Oh man, that's funny. I said earlier, when my grandfather came over to the States, two of my uncles, they wanted to go into medicine, and they went to Oakwood for their biology program. Now Oakwood it's the only Seventh-day Adventist HBCU in the world. So because of that, it's like when you go there, my wife would jokingly say, like, I met my wife there, which could be a whole nother podcast. But she said when I went there, she said she felt like she was more like the minority just being black. You know what I mean? Because there were so many people there from Africa, from Caribbean, from other parts of the world, simply because it's the only Seventh-day Adventist HBCU. So, like I said, my mom, both of her brothers, they both went to Oakwood, went on to become physicians. But while they were there, and I was actually living in Germany at the time because my dad was in the army, they sent us these Oakwood hats. So I have a picture of my brother and I at a fair wearing these Oakwood Scullies, and I don't know, like I'm maybe in preschool. So that was slightly embedded in my head about this Oakwood thing, you know.
Right.
Um, and as I got older, I wasn't necessarily certain of going to Oakwood, but that was always like in my mind. And honestly, what it boiled down to, I think it was my junior year of high school. Oakwood has this event, which I'm pretty sure most schools do. It's just like if you're a junior or senior in high school, you could actually go on campus. You could stay on the dorm, kind of get the college experience for 3 or 4 days. So I did that when my junior year. And, I went up with some of my church friends. They had a bus, and I went. And to be 100% honest, when I say the scenery, the most beautiful women were on Oakwood's campus it's like black women from all over the world, different complexions. I'm like, praise God for his creation. So to see that, I'm just like, wow, that was the first thing, to be 100% honest, that caught my eye. And I went my junior year, I just took that time to really just meet people and just have fun. But I still wasn't set on going to Oakwood. I went back my senior year of high school now, and I went solely for the purpose of meeting young ladies. I had no plans on going to Oakwood, but I remember stepping into this building called Moran Hall. And it was, I want to say, actually built with rocks from the rock quarry that the students helped build. And it's like an auditorium style building. And to see people who looked like me, my age, from all over the world, like they were singing. And when I said it's just like four part harmony, I don't know the verbiage when it comes to singing, but
Yeah.
they were just all around just singing, and I was just standing in the back, like it was just so beautiful. So it went beyond just what I thought is, I guess, eye candy or whatever, but to be around so many, to me, what I would consider wholesome young people. You know what I mean? Like who were brought up like kind of the way I was brought up, where I wouldn't have to explain myself why I may not do this on a Friday or a Saturday because that was my Sabbath and all of that. So I was like just taken in, and I'm like, yo, I have to be here. In addition to, just growing up. I was in a high school. I was in kind of a rough high school. And then my family dynamics just weren't the same since my parents divorced when I was in fifth grade. My mom remarried, and, I had to, so just the family dynamics were just different. And as much as I love my mom and my family, I was just ready to just be somewhere different. Like I think I needed to leave. I'm getting older as well.
Yeah.
You can only really, I guess, quote unquote, have one man in the house. It was time for me to go. So I saw Oakwood as a way of getting out. Even though they didn't even fully have my major, bro. I wanted to be a zoologist my whole life.
Yeah.
But I did the biology program. Unfortunately for me, when it first started, the biology program at Oakwood it was like predominantly a pre-med program,
Hmm.
whereas now they have different tracks. They brought in ecology, they brought in like natural sciences. So there's more of that now. And that actually started to kick off more close to when I was leaving Oakwood. But
Okay.
my experience at Oakwood, I mean, shoot, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Oakwood. I'm not saying I'm on some, what I mean, some super dude, but I'm just saying, like, if I didn't go to Oakwood, I definitely wouldn't be the man that I am today.
Oh, it definitely sounds like a great experience. And I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
like the way you describe it, it's almost like you take me back to the Black Panther movie, and it's like, man,
Mm.
okay, this is like Wakanda. You just
Oh
walk in
yeah.
here, you've got all the cultures,
Oh
all,
yeah.
all
Wakanda University. That's what they need to
yeah.
call it.
I
Yo, and there's
love
so
it,
much
man.
history there, man. It was founded in 1896. So it actually
Wow.
was a former slave plantation. Dred Scott at one point was on that, was on that land.
Man.
So it's a lot of history. And while I was there, it became university status. But they also, I guess, going through records and stuff, were able to locate there was a slave cemetery there. So they actually set up a monument there. And even one of our brothers from the prayer line, I believe, brother Brian Thomas, I believe that's where he was laid to rest. So I remember when the school's president was telling us about the slave, the slave cemetery that was located and how they'll be setting up a monument. And then on top of that, on Oakwood's campus is also Oakwood Academy and Oakwood Elementary and an Oakwood Child Care. So he was like, you could literally be born here. You could go through all your education and you could die here. And he said that. We're like, yo, calm down. We get the passion and your zeal, but, just calm down a little bit. But we get what you're saying. But it's a lot of history there,
Yeah.
to be able to say like, yo, like I had some of the same professors my uncles did, at least one of them. And they're like, I had an embryology course, and they're like, who's your professor? And I told them the name, and they're like, oh, we had him too while we were there. So just the amount of history in that small school. I acquired the Aeolians, and I know it sounds like a plug, but the Aeolians
Hey, man,
ranked
plug them
the
away.
they're
Plug them
they're
away.
ranked the number one choir. They're ranked the number one choir in the world's competition. I didn't even know they have like a Olympics for choirs, and Oakwood's choir is ranked number one in the world. So when I used to go to church and them jokers would start singing, I'm like, you couldn't tell me at any moment the church wasn't about to open up and angels were about to start coming in. Because when I said the melody and the harmony and that classical music, which I didn't really care for at first, but when I said when it really hit, yo, it took you to another level, man.
That's
Another
what's up.
level. And I met my wife there, so I can't complain at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You got all the best of the worlds. It's funny when you
Man.
mentioned the choir competitions, you just took me
Uh
back to this Sister Act with Whoopi back in the day. I was like, okay, I see what
okay,
they got going on
let
here.
me find out you sing though, Asher. Let me find out you sing too.
I don't know. Every now and then I try, but I'm like, I just gotta keep practicing, warm up the vocals. But it's like if I feel myself going off key, I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right, stop, stop.
Oh, no doubt.
Nobody needs to have their eardrums broken.
Hey, hey.
But um with I guess with all of that, like what's this year been like for you in 2022?
Ooh, 2022. I have a smile on my face. 2022 was weaving. Man, I encountered some heavy things this year, but at the same time, I could legit authentically smile because I know God is doing something. What he's doing, I don't know. What I mean? Like for everybody's different. So some people, God could have the plan laid out for us. I think for me, because I'm actually even more of a planner and a person likes to organize, I think God is like, I'm not even gonna lay it out to you. You're gonna follow me one step at a time, and that's it. Like God's like, walk from here to there. I'll walk there. It's like, why are you standing over here? I don't know. What I mean? That's how I feel,
Yeah.
but I know based off of some of the things that I've encountered this year, I know that I mean it was a lot, but I just know that God has something like he's doing. And honestly, I do have to credit, you mentioned the prayer line, like I know like just some of the things just being a part of that culture. I joined in like 2017, but being a part of that prayer line, I think it prepared me for this time. What I mean? Like what we encountered this year. Like when I say this year, I mean leading into it. I'll talk about December 31st. It's like we got hit with the first banger, like the first obstacle. And often we may say, oh, when it rains, it pours. So it's like this happened, then that happened, then this happened. I'm like, oh my goodness. It was more irritation and frustration that occurred, but I can't say like I wasn't broken. What I mean? Like I just kept thinking like, okay, this can't last forever. God is doing something. But I think that was all a part of being in the Prayer Warriors global culture, that just shifted my mindset, shifted my perspective, we talked a lot about being in a crucible or being in the refiner's fire or the process. So I felt so far most of this year, Asha, has just been a process. Like if I literally take it back to December 31st, which was my wife's birthday,
Yeah.
actually the day before, December 30th, 2021, we came back from a nice trip, you know, on the way back because of that. We were getting back late in the evening. We drove. My car was in at the mechanic getting the transmission replaced. So December 30th, we drove straight from our vacation getaway straight to the mechanic before they closed, got my car out. So I'm like, oh, finally got my transmission done. That's December 30th in my
Yeah.
car. The very next day is my wife's birthday, December 31st. So I got my car home, transmission done. The truck that we just drove hundreds of miles, back from our vacation, no problem. The very next day, I'm taking my wife out to breakfast for her birthday, December 31st. Check engine light comes on, a little bit of smoke. I'm like, whoa, what is this? Fortunately, it happened about a mile from the restaurant. Maybe that we were able to get it there, got it back home. Come to find out, long story short, engine blown. So I'm like, I just dropped money for a transmission on my other car. Now my truck engine gone, like blown. So I park it up. I'm like, praise God. Perspective, Asher. I just got the transmission done on my car, so I'm driving that. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm good. And then like 2 or 3 months in, my car started to act up. The one that I just got the transmission done in December, the car started to act up a little bit. And in like a roughly like a 2 week span, it's
Hmm.
like my washer went out. My family, this is my mom's side, one of my aunts who was there from the beginning, who like, like she unfortunately passed, from cancer. So it was like my AC went out, my air conditioner went out, my washer went out, my aunt passed. And like almost that same week, that second the car that I was driving with the transmission
Yeah.
replaced, the engine goes out in that. So now I have two cars, engine blown. We're down to just one car now because we had three. So we got my wife's car. We got, our AC gets blown out. We're dealing with the home warranty. My washer goes out. We're running to the laundromat. I didn't even know how expensive it got. Now I'm dropping $80, $90. By
Ooh.
the time I wash a family of five, wash and dry, I'm like $80 to wash clothes. So it was just like a lot that happened at one time, Asher. But I will say bit by bit, God put things in place. But even back to the truck, once again, because I said it's been a rough year. Check this out, Ashton. I'll keep this short. Like the truck where we got the engine replaced, I
Mhm.
ordered the engine online because it was cheaper than that, the mechanic. So I had the engine shipped in directly to them. I paid to have it installed. There was that engine, the replacement engine was defective. So the replacement engine
Yeah.
was defective. So I had to then have the replacement engine. I had to go through the company. They honored the warranty.
Hmm.
They sent a replacement engine, but guess what was not covered? The labor.
Mm.
So I
So you got
bought
to
an
pay it
engine.
twice.
I bought an engine, which was like, not trying to drop numbers, but just trying to make it real. But the engine was about 4,200. The labor was about 3,200 because they, replaced the engine. They had to do the water pump and some other things just to find out that the replacement engine was defective. So
Yeah.
they sent another engine, and then I had to pay to have the replacement engine installed. You know what I mean? And I finally get that done. And when I said this has been drawn out, like I'm talking about this is almost within the last month. So I have the other engine reinstalled. It's finally done. I paid for that maybe like 2 weeks ago. That's how recent this occurred. So we're driving the truck. Everything is good. Where our spirits are better. We got our vehicle. We're no longer one car. So we're gonna just do a 1 day trip, just a 1 day getaway. Load that joker up. We got the everything. We got, I got our bags packed. We got the coolers, the ice, the drinks. I stop at the gas station. I step on the brakes. That joke keep moving. I'm like, what? I step on the brakes. It keeps moving. I'm like, yo, I just spent another 2,000 and change this week of
Oof.
getting getting that joint fixed. Long story short, we still made the trip happen because like that's what I'm saying. Like things have happened this year, Asher, but we
Hmm.
still pushed through. So I got it back home, got a rental, and I'm like, my family is still gonna enjoy this moment. We're not gonna allow these obstacles to stop us. And it ended up being something called a brake booster, not even the brakes, and that
Hmm.
was about $500, which was compared to what I've been paying. and I
Yeah.
paid 2,000 that week, 2,000 and change. It's
Yeah.
kind of minute in comparison, but altogether, it's just like we've encountered many challenges this year. But
Mhm.
even though the challenges have come, they haven't necessarily stopped us. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Instead of them being a roadblock, I'm gonna turn them into stepping stones. You know what I mean?
I
So
like
yeah,
that.
it's been an interesting year, bro. Interesting, but we're still here, and we could still genuinely smile about it. You know what I mean? Because we know God is doing something. What
Yeah.
He's doing, I have no idea, but He's doing something.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah, bro.
that's amazing because
Yeah,
it's like without that perspective shift, like you mentioned, it you can very quickly just get caught up in the things that are happening and just be like, why is this happening to me? Like, and
yeah,
then just it can quickly spiral out of control if you just focusing on like the the circumstances or like the oh this and then one thing and then another thing. It's like
yeah.
and having to fix this and fix that, it's like this no small feat. Like
Nah,
it can pretty much stretch you to like your wits end to where you're not
and
just
major
like,
things
yeah. And it's
like
like,
yeah, bro.
yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like the AC, you know what I mean? Like that's major. You know what I mean? Like you said, we live in Georgia in the summertime. So
Right.
our joint was actually out for about 2 months, Asher. You
Mm.
know, so imagine like going to your bedroom and it says 92 degrees. You know what I mean? Or you stepping out the shower sweating. You know what I mean? But praise God, you know, we did relocate last year. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
So like, you know what I mean? On our main floor, we have
mhm.
air conditioning, and in the basement it has air conditioning. You know what I mean? So you know, but that meant for about 2 months, you know, I reached a point it was too hot. Like I'm sleeping on the couch, you know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah,
sleeping downstairs, but then at the same time, it's like you're not getting good sleep because you're sleeping on the couch, you know what I mean?
right,
So,
right.
but just as quickly as stuff could happen, like it feels like this, after this,
Mhm.
as just as quick as you feel the storm is coming through, you know what I mean? Those things will come back together. You know what I mean? Like just as quickly as the problems come in, God's timing will have those things go right back out. You know what I mean? So all those things that happened that I felt were bringing turmoil or challenges or you know, being an obstacle or, you know what I mean, just going against the family, being opposition to the family, just as quickly as they came in, you know, God allowed to be blown back out. You know what I mean? So the AC, brand new air conditioning unit put in, you know, the truck, even though it's on its third engine, you know, it has an engine, you know, you know, so everything, washing machine fixed. And even with the washing machine, I try to fix it myself, waiting on the warranty because that's what took so long. But
Mhm.
now I know when I have that problem again, I
Yeah,
know how to fix it. You know what I mean? So
nice.
God allows certain things to happen, you know, for a reason. And when we have that perspective, like you were saying, that's the game changer.
Yeah.
That's a game changer right there.
That's awesome. And it's funny kind of going back to the prayer line and talking about game changers. It's like I think we joined about the same time you were on, maybe a little bit earlier than I was, but being able to like see you and like hear you a lot of times I always hear your smile come through and just that
Mm.
energy you bring and being able to have like the men's retreats for the first time and
Oh
like
yeah,
just being part of something that's been around for over like 30 plus years now, thinking back and just being like, wow, it's they've been doing it a while, and just
yeah,
like you coming up with a plan of like organizing and be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to like we got guys from all around the world
yeah.
getting together and like communicating throughout the week, having like meaningful conversations and just really building one another and like, "Hey, we can actually we can make this a thing, like, get up
Hmm.
here," like, you had the experience of being able to camp and things like that and being like, "Wouldn't it be cool for guys to go out and maybe not camp, but we can glam?"
Yeah,
Like, we'll
yeah, yeah.
we'll
Oh
go
yeah,
up
most
we'll
definitely.
we'll go up to the Smoky Mountains because it's like, I guess it could be one of those common threads that's like a Black thing where people are like, "Yeah, we're not just gonna go play patty cake with bears in the woods." Like, but
Oh
it's
no,
like
sir.
there's something that it does when you're able to, like, get away on a mountaintop and just enjoy that type of experience, like, can you share, like, what that kind of meant to you putting something like that together or just being able to, like, even sit outside like you are now and just take in the scenery?
Yeah, it's almost symbolic, you know, just going up to the mountaintop. You know, sometimes you heard in the Bible, you may read about you know, different whether it was Moses or whatever. It's like they have that mountaintop experience. You know, that's something that we had. I don't know the history. I know that there were some type of get together, you know, with some of the men from the retreat, I think prior to that, like in years before, I think there was something that I think Mason West did with game. My mind went blank for a second, but with his organization that
Yeah.
he did, Nation Builders, I'm sorry, with Nation Builders that he did in Atlanta, and some brothers attended that, and I think something was done in Bermuda, but when we did the retreat, this was an opportunity. Of course, this was when I came on in 2017, so I'm speaking to all these dynamic brothers from all over the country, listening to them, listening to their stories, high caliber brothers. It's a range of brothers, some brothers straight off the street to some brothers in corporate America, some brothers, highly educated, successful in multiple areas, not just finance, successful in the family. Like I used to listen to a brother saying how he took pride in making dinner or breakfast for his wife every day. Like, what I mean? Like to me, that's like wealthy, as well. Just a different that relationship is a different form of wealth. So I was listening to all that. And I'm a person that, I would consider myself being respectful, courteous, whatever. So I stepped on the line, and I recognize there's people who've been on the line for a while. And those of you who aren't familiar with this prayer line, this was something that Dr. Eric Thomas, started he attended Oakwood, but he started, I want to say in the 80s, and don't get on me on the date, Doc. But it was going since like the 80s or 90s. We'll just leave it that the 80s or 90s. And it started on campus, and they started this men's prayer line that started to build over time. And so here I am now in 2017. Somebody shared the number with me. I get on, I start to listen, and I'm once again meeting these dynamic brothers. And then in my head, I'm like, man, I would love to be able to meet some of these guys. Like, do y'all get together? Do you do like anything? And they're like, well, not really. We try to do a few things in the past or whatever. So my thing was, I always kind of had the mentality, like, I don't like talking about stuff a lot, not knocking anybody, but it's like, I'll talk about it once or twice. So somebody will say something once or twice, but if it's something I'm passionate about, like let's do it. Like, what I mean? Like, why talk about it? So we were talking about linking up one day, and back to the respect thing. I'm like, I'm not trying to step out of place, but I know I'm new to the line, but I could, like you said, I could look into some options of us getting together. And that's literally what I did. I chose the Smoky Mountains because I was taken there when I was younger. They have these beautiful chalets and stuff up there. Um, so I chose that location. I chose a date that worked good for me. And I just threw it out there like, hey guys, if you all would like to go, these are some potential cabins. This is a date that I would like to go. And even when you mentioned camping, something that I had already done maybe 10 years before that, I don't know if I ever shared, but there was a group of men that lived in Atlanta that would go camping but they would be in the tents. And I was invited to go camping with them, and it wasn't intentional, but it's because I'm a planner. Over
Mhm.
time, I became the person, even though I was the youngest one or the rookie, however you want to put it, I was the youngest attendee. The very next year, the way I guess the way the interactions went down, the first year I was invited, I was in charge of them moving forward. So for like the next 10 years, I was planning the camping trip for men, and we weren't glamping. We were out there eating leg of lamb, you know what I mean? Frying fish, like wings, like we were grubbing, like, air
Yeah.
mattresses. I'm talking about to the point where brothers were bringing heated blankets because it was in the winter, like living comfortably, out in the woods. Like our wives were asking us to bring them back plates, but that kind of laid the foundation because I was planning that for about 10 years. So the retreat was just like, was just a step up, So when I said, hey guys, I'll put something together, I found the cabin, I got the date, I said, okay, in order for us to do this, this is what the deposit would be. So I started breaking things down like, hey, if we have 25 brothers, they could pay this amount, that'll be enough for the deposit, and so forth. So that's how it started. And I guess I thought I was going to start it initially, and then like the veterans were swooping. I mean, not that I didn't mind planning and doing it, but at the same time, I feel capable, more than capable. So I just kept with the plans, and I looked into, okay, it'll be dope if we got some shirts. So I got some shirts, and it was just for the love. I'm like, yo, I'll cook. Like you said, with the cooking thing, this was my way of kind of just like reciprocating the love that I was shown and support I was shown on the line, and brothers still stuck up when we got there. But to be 100% honest, I had full intentions of literally manning the kitchen by myself. Like when my dad came, but
Yeah.
like my dad and maybe my brother, like I had full intentions of manning the kitchen myself, but brothers stepped in, and then they helped, and it was just such a beautiful occasion to have we had the cabin was like 13,000 square feet. I think it had 13, 14 bedrooms, 60 plus men, black men coming to, oh, no, not black. What up, Jake? but, but, just for men to come together because we don't have that space. Like, that was probably one of the first times in my life, like, I'm like fully embracing men, confidently not worrying about no suspect stuff, like just in
Right,
love
right.
and support, and just to see men cry and open up and laugh and have fun and just worship. It was so, man, it was so rich, man, just to be able to be in attendance, but also feeling like a sense of fulfillment that you're somebody who helped put it together, and to see it come to fruition just off of just an idea or a suggestion. And then, we've had a retreat every year since then, except for 2020, obviously, to the pandemic. But just to know that so many men were impacted by that, and I'll say it will extend beyond the men, because a lot of these men are going home to a spouse, going home to children, going home to a company that, or going home to a community, so it's like whatever they were able to receive at that mountain, they were able to carry down into, back to their prospective homes and communities. So that was just a beautiful experience, bro. Just we had the shirts, we were eating, like we threw down,
Yeah,
and to have that many men come and, eat, and there'd be leftovers. So it's
yeah.
like you could eat until your heart's content. So yeah, man, it was a beautiful experience, bro.
Man, that's
Mm-hmm.
dope. And what's
Mm-hmm.
funny is like that year 2017, I was hurt because like I was like because the way we were communicating, it's like, okay, you got this person signed up, that person signed up, and then it's like, okay, guys, the final deadline's coming up, so get ready to go. And like
Mm-hmm.
I was just having like a personal meltdown at the time, and I was like, "No, I missed it." And then it's like
Oh man.
to see the pictures and everything like that. I was like, "Oh man."
Yo,
But
and I will
then
say this, had
yeah,
had I've known that, best believe you would have been there. But go ahead.
but
Yeah.
but the thing is, it's like kind of not just saying like, "Oh, this happened to me," and then you get stuck there, being able to
Yeah.
kind of come out of that, like, self-pity moment for myself and go to the next one. It's
Yes,
like
sir.
and go to a couple more after that. I was able to appreciate just the experience because, like, that mountaintop experience is almost
Mhm.
like nothing else, and
Yeah.
just being able to, like, fellowship with brothers, like, talk to brothers one-on-one, like, freestyle rapping in the car on the way to the grocery store.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, again, you were asking me like whether I sing or whether I freestyle. I was like, it's not coming to me at this moment. So let me let you guys flow and just
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
step back. But it's like just those different experiences and seeing like maybe some similar people go, but like you have a new person each time. And
Mhm.
like you said, it's not just black men, but it's a majority of black men, but are also open to other cultures and other things like that. And being
Mhm.
able to see people and like you have that love, you match a face with a
Mhm.
voice that you're used to hearing like week to
Yeah.
week. And just like even going down to the strip on in Gatlinburg,
Uh-huh.
Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and you just see like all the things, the rides and things like that, the
Mhm.
golf carts and just things that, you can enjoy out there.
And the
It's
bears.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
and the
we did
bears.
see a bear from a distance, and one
Yeah.
of them decided to, visit someone's car and just kinda hang out
Get
in
some
there.
trail mix. He got some
Right.
trail mix. He had trail mix in the cup holder. That's a cultural thing, Asher. Because just think about it. This brother came from New Jersey, so he's not thinking that I'm gonna leave my window down in the Smoky Mountains. I think something must have spilled something, so he left his windows down to air dry, and he had a thing of trail mix in the center console in the summertime. So them yogis like, oh, I'm coming up in there.
Yeah.
So that was funny, but I could say every single retreat was different, man. Like I liked each retreat for a different reason, because the one that you mentioned, the first retreat we didn't leave the cabin, whereas the one you mentioned, we kind of went out more, so we kind of enjoyed the city, so we went out. I remember, I think we went hiking. We went out to, I remember, Golden Corral.
Yeah.
So we went to that event spot that had the go karts and all the other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So each retreat we did something different that had a different vibe. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but that may have been the one where I didn't even cook. Like I think we just grabbed
Mm.
food,
Yeah.
so each one had a different vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
it's amazing about that. I just wanted to highlight it for a minute because I was like, that's one of the many things I appreciate about you, but like your willingness to step up and even like we didn't even touch about what you did post college to like
Hmm.
like your whole teaching career going into biology, but it's like
Yeah.
just the energy that you bring and the person that you are, the father that you are. I think that's an amazing, dope thing. And just being able to like chat with you about that, highlight that for a moment, just warms my heart to start a new week.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let people know where they can find you online or offline.
Okay, where they can find me, I'm Ryan Manning 1906 on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way, the best way. We don't even do business cards anymore, Asher, but Ryan Manning 1906. That number is significant, from Ice Cold Brothers at Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Yes, sir.
I love it. I always wondered about that, but I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like you got the fraternity, you got the Oakwood history, you've got the just that culture, the background,
Mm.
like the culture not only that you came from, but the one that you built for yourself.
Yes, sir. And I have to just give me 10 seconds,
Yeah.
Asher. I gave so much credit to the prayer line. I gave so much credit to family. I gave so much credit to Oakwood. I gave credit to God. I have to give credit to my wife. You know, the prayer I would not be the man who I am today because of the prayer line, but I definitely wouldn't be the human being I am if it wasn't for my wife. I did meet here at Oakwood at the age of 17. We dated for 7 years, and this past June we celebrated 17 years of marriage. So like that's my girl, man. Like legit, like my best friend. I still have her as my screensaver on my phone. Like that's my living dream girl. So I love my wife, Sherry Denise Manning. Yes.
That's awesome. Amazing shout out. But
Yes, sir.
in closing, the last question I'll ask you is from the first question I asked you, are you still who you said you were?
Mm. Am I still who I would say, ooh, that's a simple question, but it's kind of intricate at the same time. I'll say yes, I am who I say I am. And in defining myself, when I said that I'm a child of God, like, certain things with God, like he's not going to just be complacent. He doesn't want us to be complacent. So I believe that where I am, even at the beginning of the call, is not the same person I am right now, just over some of the things we talked about. So I just truly believe that God has taken me somewhere. So, I'm not the same person, at the start of the prayer line, or just, God has just taken me and my family somewhere. Where to, I don't know. So I'm not the same man, but I'm the same human being, but God is changing me as a man.
I love that, man.
I'm not
Just
trying to be deep. I don't know, bro.
no, no, no. You're speaking right on it. That's the evolution and
Yeah.
that's in essence like really who you are. And it's great to have this conversation and thank you for
Yes,
the
sir.
time.
Thank you as well, man. I appreciate you and allowing me to be on your platform.
Yes, sir.